Morning everyone, and yes, let's follow the theme of action. That's some of what I'll be saying. My name's Gaynor Quilter. I'm the Chief Exec of Apex Works. I've been invited to be part of this panel because I am the newly elected chair of the BCS Assembly. We've not had our first meeting yet, it's next week. So it's not easy for me at this point to be able to say what we have in terms of both the clear and collective kind of vision and strategy for what we want to achieve. But I do use the word achieve, and I will keep talking about action because that's what the Assembly is actually about. Today for me, this is a real great opportunity to hear more both from the BCS organisations that are here and are obviously part of that Assembly, as well as in terms of everybody else that is here, different perspectives, different views. And it will help us kind of gauge the priorities that we set for the Assembly and the kind of actions that we want to take as a group. I wanted to be chair, as like most people here, I'm sure, I've been involved in both a work and a home capacity in terms of all the communities I've lived in. So I've volunteered alongside, I'm sure, everybody else in this room to do something that's important and passionate to me. I've also worked in the charitable sector, and I say the charitable sector, for over 30 years now, with homeless young people, with children and young people with severe and profound learning disabilities, as well as young people with mental health difficulties. So I've kind of worked in a number of sectors with very vulnerable and marginalised young people. In my spare time, yes, besides having two twin boys, I have got involved in lots of different campaigns, you know, from the early 80s to the campaigns that I'm sure we'll be setting up, some of which might come from today. I'm passionate about participation, very passionate. It's a central part of what I believe in, but also in terms of the work of most voluntary and community sector organisations. I have to work really hard on process. It's not something that comes naturally, so I have to work hard on it. But I know for my organisations, the ones I've run and the one that I currently run, the outcome is really important, and it's got to be concrete, and it's got to mean something for the service users that are getting it or receiving it or being part of it. So in very general terms, as opposed to being very specific about the issues, although I could spend a very long time telling you about the critical issues for Apex at the moment, I won't do that. I'll say what I hope are the aspirations for the Assembly that I am now chair of. And these are my aspirations, not because we've not checked them out yet, but these are some of the things that colleagues across the city and the county have said are issues for them. So one of the aspirations is that there's a genuine dialogue and a grown-up relationship that is based on our understanding our positions of strength rather than what sometimes is seen as dependency. That we're driven by our commitment to deliver services to all members of our community, and that we never forget, and this is something I'm very passionate about, we never forget the vulnerable and marginalised, who generally always come off worse in situations of structural change, and certainly the cops, and we have to be really mindful of that. That we're able to prove, and Val's produced this, and this is the first time I've seen this, so it's great, that we're actually able to prove that we add social value, and that we're not seen as a cheap or even free option. That we continue to find ways to deliver services that we need, as well as being mindful of the services that we might lose, and by finding solutions that are based on service users, not necessarily on service providers. And there's lots of examples from the past, and I'm sure I know from talking to colleagues that there's lots of examples now of greater collaboration, of talks of merger, and a lot more partnership working going on. I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I'm very mindful of all things being impermanent. It's part of my practice. So I'd like to work to achieve the change we want, instead of using up our energy to fight the battles that we can't win. This is my hometown. I returned home after 25 years of living in London to be a full-time carer for my terminally ill mum. I rediscovered the city as a grown-up. I'd only lived here as a child. And there's a lot more variety, as well as the great diversity that's here. And the other thing that, you know, in talking about what we're talking about today, is actually the environment. One of the things that's fabulous about coming home to Leicester is the amount of trees that there are everywhere. Not least not that we forget that, really. I've also now, and again this is part of belonging, I've also got a family season ticket to the Walker Stadium, something I've wanted for a really long time. And my boys love football, and I hope that they'll love the city too. I know that this city is great because it's my city, I was born here. But I want there to be more than the passion that we talk about. That's why, like most people in this room, like a lot of friends and neighbours and colleagues, I want to make it better. I want to be, you know, I want to be part of making something better. We've not just woken up to the big society. It's always been here. We are a compassionate city, we are a compassionate society. You only have to look for it. And as last week's Radio Leicester phone-in talked about at length, people do care. They really do care. And they're not lazy. They do want to volunteer. They do want to contribute. And because they want to actually have more choice and more control. And they want to be part of something. So my boys want to be part of Leicester at the minute only because they support the football team. But people do want to be part of something. They do want to belong. They do want to contribute. So this morning, this day, is about making it real. It's my first time. I've only just kind of returned back to the city. I think it is all about engaging in action. If asked, we all understand what needs to be done locally. We all have differing ideas of what should be done, and that's often where the fun comes in. And if we're asked more than once, and often that's all we're asked, if we're asked more than once, we often do contribute and get much more involved and make the changes that we decide we want to happen. I think it's up to us here, not just us, but everybody in the sense of who we know and who we talk to make these kind of things happen. It is a challenging time. It's quite obvious from the other speakers, and we all know this in our daily lives. It's a very challenging time for families, for all of us. But there are obstacles along the way. There's a lot of obstacles that we're going to have to get by. But there's also opportunities. There's loads of opportunities there. So instead of, you know, what is often considered to be a voluntary sector whinge, there are opportunities out there. And we need to help shape those opportunities. But we need to deliver the outcomes that we want, that we choose, and that are actually the outcomes that are needed for our communities or the service users that we work with.